Mr. Elegant. Although thought of as a master pianist of the swing era, his exquisite touch and overall style was a major influence on many of the early modern players such as Al Haig, Hank Jones, Jimmy Rolls, and later Tommy Flanagan. Who is Teddy Wilson? Here on Big on Bebop. He was born Theodore Shaw, November 24, 1912, in Austin, Texas. Under his parents as school teachers, his early music education began at the age of 6 on the piano. Then, he studied the violin, oboe, and clarinet at Tuskegee Institute in Tuskegee, Alabama, and then music theory at Talladega College. Wilson moved to Detroit with his brother, musician Gus Wilson. Teddy began his professional career in 1929 with Speed Webb's band. Wilson then took over the pianist position of the bandleader Milton Sr.'s band from Art Tatum in 1930. After touring with the band in Chicago, he decided to stay in Chicago and worked with Louis Armstrong and his orchestra between 1931 to 1933. He also understudied Earl Hines at Hines' Grand Terrace Cafe Orchestra before moving to New York to perform with Benny Carter's Chocolate Dandies in 1933. In 1935, while jamming with Benny Goodman and Carl Bellinger at a house party, they caught the attention of producer John Hammond, who arranged several recording sessions for them. These recordings became the basis of the Benny Goodman Trio, which consisted of Goodman, Wilson, and drummer Gene Krupa, and then later vibraphonist Lionel Hampton. The trio performed during the Goodman Big Band intermission. By joining the trio, Wilson became one of the first black musicians to perform prominently in a racially integrated group. Hammond was also instrumental in getting Wilson a contract with Brunswick Records from 1935 to 1939 to record hot swing arrangements of the popular songs of the day, with a growing jukebox trade in mind. He also took part in many sessions with Lester Young, Roy Eldridge, Charlie Shavers, Red Norvo, Buck Clayton, and Ben Webster. 38 of his recordings have been hits, and these are mostly chamber jazz recordings with singers such as Lena Horne, Helen Ward, Ella Fitzgerald, Mildred Bailey, and Billie Holiday. Among those vocals, Billie Holiday and Teddy Wilson made 14 sides together in 1935 alone. From 1939 to 1942, he recorded for Columbia Records. He also left Goodman's band to form his own 15-piece big band in 1939, which lasted only a year. In 1944, he returned to his sideman position in the Benny Goodman Sextet, and his musical association with Goodman continued until 1962. Wilson accompanied Dizzy Gillespie and Charlie Parker on a recording in 1945 and fit in with them beautifully. In the mid to late 1940s, Wilson mainly focused on studio recordings, on-screen performances, and radio broadcasts, instead of playing on public stages. After the demise of his big band, Wilson formed a sextet that performed at Cafe Society from 1940 to 1944. There he led jazz shows called Chamber Jazz, with a dance orchestra composed of himself, Frankie Newton, Ed Hall, and Billie Holiday. He was dubbed the Marxist Mozart due to his support for left-wing causes. He performed in benefit concerts for New York Masses Journal and for Russian war relief, and he chaired the Artists Committee. Later, the FBI suspended Wilson's performing activities on broadcast, radio, and social activities, alleging that he was involved in communism. From 1945 to 1952, Wilson taught at the Juilliard School. After that, he toured across numerous countries in Europe, including Scandinavia, England, Scotland, Germany, Holland, and Switzerland. In the 1950s, he recorded for Verve Records. Wilson can also be seen appearing as himself in the motion pictures Hollywood Hotel in 1937, The Benny Goodman Story in 1955. He later worked as a musical director for The Dick Cavett Show. He performed as a soloist and with pickup groups until the final years of his life, including leading a trio with his sons Theodore Wilson on bass and Stephen Wilson on drums. In 1979, he was awarded an honorary doctorate of music from Berklee College of Music. Wilson died in 1986 of stomach cancer. He was 73. Teddy Wilson's distinct, elegant style evolved from a synthesis of Earl Hines, Art Tatum, and Fats Waller. He was the most influential young pianist of the late 30s and the early 1940s. Teddy Wilson, a pioneer swing bop piano player.